Lightweight, baby, said the Viking of a man. Dane racked the bar and, with his primal peripheral vision, noticed that fresh meat had entered the cage. He took a large breath out of his 6'4", 255-pound frame, expanded his chest with confidence, and with Titan-like posture, he proceeded to walk towards our group that was busy sweating with intimidation. "Welcome to the team," he emphasized, extending his fist outward toward me. Time to get to work, time to get to work, young blood." I gave him a fist bump, as he did each of the underclassmen next to me. He then nodded at Coach McCarthy with respect, and then made his way over to a nearby sophomore, struggling to perform a proper power clean. I could tell he was giving some encouraging feedback by the way the young student athlete listened to him and respected him. We all found ourselves watching Dane with astonishment as he mentored the underclassmen with positive criticism. You could feel the effect of his influence in the room. It was like watching a great white shark teach a seal how to swim. "I need you to give me 5 more reps on this next set," said Dane to the young athlete. "You only did 4 the first time, but I know you can give me 1 more. It's all in your head. You can push your body farther than your mind thinks you can. Give me 5 reps." In our culture, our upperclassmen mentor our younger guys, Coach McCarthy explained to our group. "When you master your craft, it's then your job to teach others. That way we can all get better. This is a player-led team." And we also have high standards on this team. Our leaders set the example of those standards that you see on the wall over there. It's their standards, after all. They get the honor of creating their own standards at the beginning of every season. I believe it allows them to have more ownership in our culture, and they do a better job of holding everyone accountable because it's their standards. We nodded with a collective understanding, but remained silent and still, digesting what's unfolding around us. Next to the door of the weight room was a poster that listed the standards for this year's team. No walking, no tardiness or laziness, no disrespect, teach others, and do your job. One wall in the weight room contained the plaques of the weight training records for the past and present athletes: the highest vertical jump, the fastest 40-yard dash, the heaviest bench press, and onward. Some of the record holders are from 5 years prior, several as recent as this year. Notably, the player with the highest grade point average are also displayed with pride. That was particularly shocking to me, but it gave me the sense that this program is truly about the student first and the athlete second. "Competition is our very nature as athletes," said Coach McCarthy in a cool manner. "We are always competing, on and off the field." We listened quietly, recognizing that phrase. Excellence was once again posted on every wall of the dungeon, what they called the weight room. It's even stitched in the shirts that the players are wearing. I remember thinking to myself, this is a culture of excellence. "Let me show you something we're really proud of," said Coach McCarthy as he led our group further down the hallway. Arriving at the team's study hall, we stood shoulder to shoulder in curiosity as we observed rows of the bookshelves, whiteboards, computers, and yards of desk space. 2 players appeared to be reading an English textbook with a teacher sitting next to them at the table. "This is our study hall," said Coach McCarthy, as he nodded an affirmation to the teacher, who pardoned the gentle interruption. The 2 student athletes at the table smiled and nodded at their new teammates and then at each other. "There's absolutely no tolerance on this team for underperformance in the classroom," said Coach McCarthy. "If you want to play ball on this team, you're in this room with one of our players or a tutor until you have a 3.0 or better. You cannot play until that happens. No excuses. You must be excellent." After a brief pause, Coach McCarthy went on to say, "Besides your home and the classroom, there are only 3 places you belong, either in that weight room, in this study hall, or on that field. I don't care if you set up a cot in this building to sleep and spend the night, you will be at least 15 minutes early for everything, dressed and ready to go. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir." We all fired back in response immediately and in unison, providing him with the intended response. Coach McCarthy then led us back towards the main lobby. Along the way, several pictures on the wall caught my eye, and Coach McCarthy noticed my distracted attention. Some of the frames displayed team photos from the previous years, while others were photos of team outings with players laughing and celebrating. One photo in particular really caught my attention. It was the team fishing trip with several players hoisting up a 200-pound billfish. Coach McCarthy said, "The young men on this team do everything together. I swear they can read each other's thoughts, a byproduct of thousands of hours spent suffering together, talking with one another, sharing the good times and the bad times. That's how you form bonds. It definitely shows on the field." He then turned around to include the rest of us, of the underclassmen, in the conversation. "You have to have fun together, men, but you also have to hold each other to a standard. The reason you push through the hard stuff is because you don't want to be the one who lets the man down next to you. That's what real teams do. They raise the bar for each other, and when you care about your brothers, you don't just meet the standard, you become the reason the standard rises." Serving as the final stop on the indoctrination tour, Coach McCarthy then led us out the front doors of the lobby to the football stadium. This was the moment I had been waiting for. He then escorted us through the front entrance, past the ticket windows, and to the 50-yard line at center field. Once we were together and huddled around him, Coach McCarthy gazed at the bleachers of the stadium for approximately 10 seconds before speaking. Seated in the bleachers were students, faculty, friends, and family, patiently waiting for the arrival of the players for the spring inter-squad scrimmage. "This is a big family, men," Coach McCarthy said, smiling. "Everyone you see is just as much a part of this team as you are. The way you want to succeed, they want you to succeed just as much as I want you to succeed. They are your resources, mentors, and support network. Together, we're one big family." So, that's an excerpt from a book that will hopefully come out some point next year or the year after. We'll see how it goes. But I think that just kind of captures the winning culture. Kind of the culture that you would hope to expect at the high school level or even at the college level. This is something that I wrote a while ago, and it kind of is a culmination of what I've seen through working with a lot of high school teams, but also a lot of it is what I experienced as a high school player, walking into a winning culture, which I hate to say, I don't think you see very much of nowadays. And what I'd like to do to kind of start things off is kind of figure out what are those problems. Like what are we seeing more nowadays than that old traditional culture that I know you've experienced, whether it's in the Army or, playing in the past?
Well, so on both sides, right? Like playing in the past, the culture I like when I was playing high school football, I was from 2010 to 2014. So like it not necessarily like an old school culture, but definitely old school enough to where it's a completely different identity of what you see today on a high school football team. So that's one. Two, military, kind of like the same deal. The culture in the Army when I first came in that first year was the year things started to actually shift. It felt like that's what everyone would say, like between like 2000, like 14 and 17 was when things really started to shift. And when I say culture, like what what you're allowed and what you're not allowed to do to your subordinates in the Army, right? So like more hazing cases like you saw in like the conventional units, I guess more like structured um discipline actions, instead of telling someone to go do like just smoking someone, right? Like, hey, go smoke this guy for like an hour. Well, like you can't just we shifted like away from that towards the end, or towards like the time I came in. There was guys that would still do it, right? But like it wasn't to the extent, I guess, like the soldier was a little bit more protected of just being a hazing person or a soldier that was just going to get hazed. But with that being said, like I I think that there's my two biggest things why I think like high school has shifted, high school football in particular and culture, is I think we're seeing a direct reflection of the transfer portal from college, and it has migrated its way down all the way into high school sports. when I see kids in high school that are like, I'm transferring to this school and they post about it and it's like this AI image background about how they're going to transfer here. I'm like, dude, that's not what this is about. And you guys are losing the baseline fundamentals of like what it is, what, in my opinion, what high school football is about. Like, yeah, you want to win, but you want to be taught and coached the actual craft of the game, and then if you want to play the next level, then you go. But it's almost like they've already instilled these terrible habits into their head because they're seeing that, well, that's what college is doing. They're bouncing around, at the D1 level or D2 level. So I think that's an issue, and it ultimately will be summed up as like there's just no buy-in. There's no guaranteed buy-in. There's no guaranteed investment. Like, hey, like you are in this school district, you're going. Like I remember when I was in, like if you had a kid that was transferring a school, like you had to physically move your address or live with another parent if they were divorced that's in that school district, like, or you're not going. Like it's very simple. And your parents would have to be like, we're going to move down the street 20 minutes or we're going to stay here and you're going to play here. And 9 out of 10 times you're staying in the school district and you're playing here.
Right.
So this whole like, and North Carolina, I think is hands down the worst I've ever seen because of like, I don't like see like states. Like I've lived all over, but like North Carolina is the really one of the only states. So like I've lived in Florida, Ohio, Texas, but like that I was invested in football where I coached for a year that like I saw it here, man. Like the magnet schools, I think that they're painted for good reason. Like, oh yeah, we're a magnet school. Anyone can go here. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's literally for athletic programs. Like, and I think that no one wants to broadcast that. Like, no one wants to go to the board and be like, kind of call them for their shit. But I don't think that they're anticipating, like, they're really paying attention to the dramatic effect it's having at the next level because these kids aren't taught teamwork. They're not taught investment. They're not taught what it is to be loyal to your team. And what that does is it just waters down, it dilutes the culture at the high school level, but then it makes these kids not assets at the next level, which is essentially because of the NIL, it's turned into a G League for the NFL. So like, you can boil it down into like, there's just no investment, there's no buy-in, and that's what I've seen at almost every high school we have worked with. Um, I would say outside of, I would say, well, I don't want to start naming high schools, but like outside of a few that I have personally worked with, and a few with you, you know, most high schools are like that now. And I think it's ruining the sport, but it's ruining what it means to be part of a team. Like, are you willing to do what we expect of you? Are you willing to go all in? Are you willing to give everything that we expect, everything that you have for what I'm asking? And it's like, not to fall off the rails and go on a rant, but like that's with anything, man. Like I don't want someone to work for me if they're not willing to, if they're not all in on the brand, if they're not all in on the company, they're not all in on the work. You don't need to be here. Imagine being an employer and you have like I hire you and every day you're like, I have to question, like, is he gonna leave me for another company? Is he gonna leave like you'd be like, how do you expect to get quality coaching out of that?
Well, first of all, I think you summed that up perfectly. I completely agree with everything you said. I've experienced it firsthand. I think the transfer portal definitely has it's kind of I mean, it's funny because you see the same kind of concept a lot, and if you look on LinkedIn and you see that a lot of people are working for this job for 4 months, they hop over to this other one. They're always looking for the bigger, better deal. It's just because this environment wasn't exactly what you thought it would be, and or you have there's a disagreement with your direct your boss, whatever the case may be. It's almost kind of like, hey, you don't like your situation, you're second string, you feel like you should be first string, you're kind of feeling entitled. Well, I'm gonna go down the street, or I'm gonna not even sometimes down the street, I'm gonna go 45 minutes away to this other school. and I'm going to live in an apartment with these other guys, and we're going to transfer to the school because we've got a better chance of being first string, better chance of going to D1, right?
Well, like, and then you say that out loud, like you put it in like LinkedIn verbiage, and it's like it makes me reflect back on the question, and it makes it even worse because it's like, who are you to have this sense of entitlement to just, this isn't going how I want it to go, so I'm going to get up and leave.
Right,
That's
right.
crazy, dude. Like that is
Instead of,
a crazy thought
okay,
process.
yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Instead of, hey, okay, this is a challenge. When I was in high school, that was something that you never even thought of. And it's wild nowadays that that is the case because when I was playing ball, it's like, okay, I'm second string. That means I got to work my tail off to try and get that first string spot.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
healthy. That's healthy. That's
That's
teaching
how,
life
yeah.
skills.
Well, like when I was a junior in high school, vulnerable moment, I was competing. Uh, I was a second string, but I was like getting rotation reps, right? Like if, I was playing linebacker, which I shouldn't have been playing. Not going to get into that. I don't want to bash any coach, whatever. But playing linebacker, and I'm in the rotation. Like if the starter his helmet came off or needed a second, like, hey, go in for a play or two, whatever. I was a direct second string, but I had my opportunity early on in the season to win that first string spot, and I blew it. And I will admit that I completely blew it because I just didn't. I was riding a high, like I'm competing for it, and then all of a sudden I was just like, why? I just got a foul attitude about the competitiveness, right? I was like, whatever. And there was at one point early on in that season where I went home and there was a school district that like the school I went to it was huge, and we had tremendous athletes. Like they were just good. They've been working together for so long. I had transferred there from Virginia Beach. I'm relearning an entire new scheme. And like the way high school football is, like you're lucky if you have a coach, and this sounds bad, that's going to sit down and teach you the scheme by scenario. Like I was just expected to know it. And the scheme we ran was a little bit complex on the defensive side of the ball for me to come in and just like pick it up. So I went home, and there was a school district literally within spitting distance from our apartment. And I knew we were moving. And I remember just looking at my parents and like, can we move down there? And they were like, why? I was like, because if I move down there, I'm going to start. Like I'm going to be number one. And they were just like, for a second, they actually thought about it. They're like, and then I remember both my mom and my dad, they were like, we're not there. Like they like the foundation. They're like, dude, we don't believe in that. Like that's
Yes.
so bad. Like it's so, if we do that for you, man, like, and then what if you get there and you blow it again? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what
Right.
if you
Right.
screw it up? Because
Grass ain't always greener on the other side.
grass ain't always greener, man. And they knew deep down a few reasons why I wasn't starting was because of my own attitude, man. Like I had a 1.8 GPA when I graduated high school. I wasn't going to class. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't going to class. I wasn't disrespectful, but I also wasn't respectful. I was hanging out with the party crowd, not a rough crowd because I'm from South Philly, but like the party crowd, people knew they went out and did all these things. So like a lot of this was completely self-inflicted. Looking back as a 30-year-old man, I'm like, dude, I was doing this to myself, man. If I would have just shut up, as what I would say in the military, if I would have just shut up and colored and just did what people told me to do that have already done it, I would have been successful. But instead, I was a 16-year-old kid, and, I'm going to reinvent the wheel because I know better than all of these grown adults. I've already done it, obviously. And then it turns out like I was in the situation that they told me I was going to be in. So that's where my parents attacked that from. And they were just like, we're not doing this, dude. Like, no, you're going to work your way out of this hole, and we're not going to send you to a new school because of a sport. And I
Yeah.
look back at that and I'm so appreciative, man.
Yeah. No. And again, they're reinforcing, or in helping you build life skills. And because,
Yeah.
okay, when you encounter that in the future, and you will, okay, this is a challenge. This is not insurmountable. I just need to, hey, put together my to-do list. What's my plan? And get to work. whether it's grades, whether it's, outperforming the guy in front of me. And you know what? Okay, if that guy is outperforming you right now and he's first string, that's probably in the best interest of the team that he is first string. So there's not going to be any bad blood from me. I'm going to be humble. What's the best use of me for this year, coach? How can I best serve the team?
Yeah.
That's the attitude.
And
And
that
and I think
it
that
was just
go
like
ahead.
it was so funny too because like looking back at it, like they were some studs that was in the rotation, man. Like there was two younger guys, a year younger than me. Like one of them went on to play at one of them was D1, but he broke his elbow. He was definitely getting recruited D1 because of his size. Like he was big and he could play a game, right? He was an outside linebacker. He was about 6'2" and he was fast. The other dude was just a brick shit house. Like he's an engineer now, I think, but like he could have definitely played Division 1. And then there was like me. I was the only junior that was in the rotation. And then the two seniors were like, the one guy is now a D2 defensive coordinator, but he played big, like D2, like played in the playoffs. Like he could have walked on to D1 school or have gotten a scholarship if he started earlier. And then the other guy was just this quick, aggressive. Like they were all good. They were all very
Mhm.
talented. Um, so like looking back at it from my coach's perspective, it's like it was just highly competitive, man.
Yeah.
And we had to
Yeah.
make the right decision. And I think in a decision like that, from a coach's perspective, like I'm not going to go with the younger guy unless the younger guy truly understands the scheme, which they didn't.
Mhm.
I'm not going to go with the middle guy who's a screw up. And I have two seniors that understand the scheme and they're the best two options.
Yeah.
This is clear. So, but like back to the point, it's just investment, man. Like it's just, are you willing to invest everything you have or the baseline requirements and then some into where you're at?
Yep. And I think that the healthy way to look at this is because it's funny, you just thought about this because was it 2 weeks ago I was listening to this podcast, and this guy basically said, and I don't know where he got this idea from, but it was a really cool idea. But basically, he just said, "Hey, take out a piece of paper, okay, and on the left side, I want you to write all the problems going on with your team." And this could be applied for anybody. You could just say all the problems going on right now for you personally, all the things that you're stressed about, all your worries, all those kinds of things on the left side of the paper. Draw a line in the middle. On the right side, write down the things that you're in control of. And you'll find that that list is a lot shorter. And I
Yeah.
think that you could go all day and say the parents are enabling this bad behavior. A lot of these parents have never played football before, and they don't understand why they need to be in the weight room at 6 a.m. for 4 or 5 days a week. They don't understand that. It's too hard for them. You're pushing them too hard. He's already playing a spring sport. Why does he need to work out? Because I don't think that's going to impact him. He's looking at colleges for lacrosse or baseball, all you name it.
That that
In addition,
that's crazy to me.
yeah, and
Like
in
that.
addition to transfer portal, in addition to, oh, well, is he gonna get the best looks right now because this school is in the biggest market area? I wanna the coaches don't have a whole lot of control over that.
No, they
So what
don't.
do they have control over? There are some problems that I've seen on teams that they do have control over. Well, lack of accountability in the system, lack of accountability on the team, poor communication, uh, lack of discipline, lack of culture, lack of identity. Okay, these are the things that leaders on teams do have control over. Now, I'm going to segue this into our leadership reaction course. We had the chance, and when I say we, Joey and I had the chance to do a leadership reaction course with our favorite high school here in Holly Springs and with Coach Firth and his team. Now, I want to say this is the fourth, and we may have even have done more, but we usually try to do one or two with the team a year.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do is just kind of walk our audience through it a little bit, and it's a lot of details, but we'll do my best to give it like a 30,000 foot perspective. Okay. Basically, what we do is we secure their practice field. We invite the team out and we make the best use of time for 1 hour. And what we do is we set up 4 stations. We divide the group up. I want to say we had a group of about 50 to 60 guys. We were short a few because there was a big lacrosse game coming up, which we totally understand. We don't want anybody getting injured or anything like that. But this isn't really something I see any players getting injured. But nonetheless, with the group that we had, we divided the group up into 4 different groups. And we have a leadership council with the Holly Springs team. So what we did, and on Coach Firth's idea, was to have all the leaders in our leadership council, at least 4 of them, be in charge of these groups. Now, every single station has a physical activity to kick things off, and then they go into more of a mentally challenging team building obstacle. So the reason why we do that, of course, is because we want this team and this group competing at each station to be having to do the obstacle while they're tired, while they're gassed, while they're sore. Why is that important? Well, has anybody been in fourth quarter where it's you're tired, you're sore, you're gassed, and you're responsible for winning the game, right? Leading your team. So, can you work as a team in spite of being tired, physically sore, beat down, whatever the case may be? Can you communicate? Can you come up with a sound strategy? Can you have that encouragement, that energy to carry your team forward? And so every single station, and each one is different, we evaluate the leaders and as they complete. So we're evaluating the team and how they perform. We're also evaluating how the leaders lead. Okay. And usually our rubric is based on communication. Okay. How well did they communicate? What was their strategy? What was the plan that they came up with? Were they full of energy? Were they motivating their guys? And their calmness under pressure. Now, usually for the most part, these obstacles are time sensitive. So they need to be able to, work within the time constraints. And each one of these drills are designed so that there's just enough time to get through everything. And if you start making mistakes, it's going to cost you, and you're not going to be able to help your team overcome the obstacle. Once the obstacle and the physical, so once the physical part and the obstacle are completed, then each station has a coach, and that coach will then debrief with the leader, give them an evaluation. Hey, here's how you did on this, scoring from 1 to 5 on those 4 categories: communication, strategy, energy, motivation, calmness under pressure. And then they'll debrief with the group. How did you feel like you did? What are some things you could have done better? What would you do differently next time? Feedback for your leader. What are some things that he did well? What are some things he needs to improve on? And it really leads to a good discussion when it's all said and done. So, I guess the best way to kind of go into this is let's just kind of break down some of the drills, and so we can kind of give the audience a little taste as to what's going on. The first one we're going to do and talk about is the Kim's game. Now, in full transparency, this this whole thing was inspired by a leadership training course that I believe the Marine Corps does. Does the Army do anything like this? Just out of curiosity.
So we do the Army's weird, right? So we have we have leadership courses for when you get promoted to sergeant or you get your P status, promotion status to sergeant, so you're eligible. You have to complete BLC, so basic leaders course. And then if you get your P status for staff sergeant, you have to complete advanced leadership course where it's MOS, so you're job specific. SL, and it just goes up each tier. But we have leadership, Ranger School is a leadership course. Well, they say it's a leadership course.
Right.
I would agree with that it is, because every single person you're going to learn how to be a leader in a combat scenario, not eating or sleeping, and then you're going to learn how to follow in a
Mm-hmm.
combat scenario, not eating or sleeping. So Ranger School is tip of the spear for leadership courses within the Army. Things are similar, but just the taskings that we do within those schools are a little different.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been through Ranger School, but I do know, for example, we do a down pilot.
Okay.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
we doing an LRC, we have a down pilot. I think that mountain phase of Ranger School has a down pilot mission. And normally your down pilot missions like in like mountain phase of Ranger School, and like I don't want to give it away at any other schools that have
Hmm.
it. Normally they're the most excruciating ones. Like
Okay.
when they read like, a helicopter pilot's been shot down, everyone's like soul kind of gets ripped out of their body because you're about to get drugged through the ringer, dude. like, So I don't
Yeah.
want to give it away because my buddies have been through a few courses that they have
Yeah.
those, and like there's two where it's like if you have a down pilot and then immediately following that mission you go into there's another one.
Hmm.
And if you get both of them, it's like just the gauntlet of
Sure.
pain, dude.
I can
like
I can only imagine, and it's funny because and obviously, I don't. We'll talk about kind of their reaction once we went through all this. But it's funny when we did it because obviously, you got to do a debrief when it's all said and done with your leadership council after we did the leadership reaction course. And one of the things they said was that there are some guys that were terrified to show up to this thing because they've heard the stories. And some of these leadership reaction courses, we make tweaks. So, like some of the things you're going to hear, that's why I say it's inspired by the Marine Corps leadership reaction courses. We've made some tweaks to best serve the football team, of course, but they're like, oh my gosh, man, some guys are terrified to show up to this thing.
dude,
And
Livingstone is like not like the coaching staff is pumped.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Like
usually
they
the
got
coaches are
yeah.
like, yeah, let's rock and roll. I'm ready to
The
go, ready
kids
to
are like,
smoke
I
these
don't want to
guys.
do, and
Yeah.
I love doing the high school. Not to again fall off the rails, but I love doing the high schools. Um, but doing the colleges are
No.
it's a little bit more fun because everyone's an adult, and the
Hmm.
colleges aren't. They play by a different set of rules, man.
Oh,
They're
I'm
like
sure.
they're like, oh,
I'm
it's
sure.
not mandatory, but like
But if you're not there, there's going to be some
not that
accountability.
any college we've worked with has said that.
Right.
Throwing that in there.
So anyway, so back to Kim's. So the first game we do, so there's like I said, every single drill has a physical component, and then there's the mental team building component, the obstacle we call it. And this one is called the Kim's game. Now, Kim's game is inspired by Rudyard Kipling's poem. With the main character, that's where the name Kim is coming from, and I have not read this, so I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he was involved in some espionage, and one of the drills is that it's all about memory and memorizing, recognizing items, and being able to account for those items. Is kind of the basic gist. And if there's any Marines out there who can in the comments, feel free to elaborate on this one. Like I said, I'm probably not doing the best job, but this is what we did. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share a picture. Here we go. Okay, this is kind of the basic idea. So the team has 1 minute to look at all the items. And after a minute, we're going to cover the items back up. Then they go into the physical activity. And I'll get to the physical activity here in a second. But once they complete the physical activity, the group then needs to come back and they need to, in order to pass the obstacle, they need to account for every single item. And it's 20 items. Now, I don't know if we want to give away the secrets as to best accomplishing this. Nah, what the heck? So, really, the groups that found success with this is they had every single group member pick up their item. So it's if you got 10 guys, there's 20 items. Everybody gets 2 items. Pick them up. And there's some psychological thing with that if you feel it, you hold it, it's just easier to recall it. Some guys have, photographic memory, and great, all the power to them. But that seemed to work best for the groups. So the physical component of this challenge is the players, and I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. The players have to build a bridge. I think the Marines sometimes call this build a house. Nonetheless, they have to build a bridge with their bodies, shoulder to shoulder in a push up plank position. The last member has to crawl underneath the bridge, complete the bridge on the other side, and then and then of course now the first member, now the farthest away, then they have to crawl under. So it just becomes this continuously moving bridge, and they got to cover roughly 30 to 40 yards, something like this. So naturally, when they get up to the line, they see how far they got to go. They're like, "Oh shit, this is gonna be an ass kicker." Here's the thing: first, we'll call it 10 yards, not that bad. After 10 yards,
Brutal.
pain starts sinking in. And I want to make a point about this because out of all the physical activities that we do in the leadership reaction course, this one right here is something that I dissect with the team all the time because I think this is the best metaphor, if you want to call it that, for a football team and a culture. Okay. Let's break it down here for a second. This is a group trying to cover long distance and they can't do it alone. They have to rely on each other. Why is that? Because if you fail to hold up your bridge, and you'll see this time and time again, we saw it at the leadership reaction course we did with Holly Springs, is there will be a guy where the pain gets too much to bear and they drop. And so they drop, they recover, they go to a knee. If that happens, the group has to stop where they're at and do push-ups, which imagine this. You're holding the plank the entire time. Your arms are already smoked. Now you got to do 10 push-ups. So it's even smoking them more. Then they get back up and they resume where they left off. I don't want to give them any recovery. They got to take off exactly from where they left off. And now they're pushing each other even further. And you can tell they all want to drop because this, as much as it's a physical gasser, it is a mental toughness exercise. Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about culture, we're talking about what Ray Ramos talked about a few weeks ago, which is, and this is the Ranger culture that he talked about, which is, I don't want to let down the guy to my right and the guy to my left. And that's exactly what we're talking about here is I need to hold this plank because we got a job to do and I don't want to let down my peers. So no matter what happens, I got to get through this and I got to take myself mentally, take myself somewhere else so that I'm not focused on the pain because without a doubt, if you're tough enough, your body can withstand this. It's pain. Okay. You're strong enough to push through that. But are you mentally strong enough to go somewhere else? And the smart leaders will start chiming in and they'll start saying, hey, start calling out your items. Start thinking about your items. Don't think about the pain. The pain is your body trying to say, hey, I can't do this. No, you can't. Okay. Because your mind is stronger than that. So this is the best representation of a football team because I like to say like around 15, 20 yards, when all of a sudden the pain's hitting in, you're going to start hearing these guys starting to yell and encourage each other. Hey, don't quit, man. Just hold it. Just hold it, guys. We got this. And you start hearing these growls and all these different things. And that actually helps them. It helps them get further the more vocal they get. The quiet, if everybody's quiet and only focusing on themselves, they're going to fail. But if they start working as a unit, start encouraging one another. I've even seen done with not this team, but teams in the past where a guy can't hold up. There will be a guy that will stick his arm out and hold them up. And there'll be another guy on the other side to hold them up so they don't fail. That is like
Yeah,
cinema when you see that.
so yeah.
But the whole point is when it's all said and done, they finally get past it. They see how far they've gone. And in the debrief with the group, one of the first things I say is, in a football game where let's just say it's 7-7, okay? Quarterback throws an interception, pick six. What happens in that sideline usually? It's quiet because now the other team has all the momentum. They just scored, okay? And you just see crickets on the sideline because now everybody feels down. When what they should be doing is starting to get louder, starting to growl, starting to do all those things that happen in that drill to get guys fired up because you're still in this game. You cannot become hostage to the situation. You can't. That's how teams can battle back. That's like the New England Patriots down 28-3 against the Atlanta Falcons. You think morale was down a little bit on that sideline?
Well,
Probably.
it's interesting that you bring that up because I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago, actually, and this like sports psychologist was looking at the Eagles and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And she was like, the one biggest thing that I saw was on both sidelines, the difference was the Eagles' mentality they came into that game and they prepared to win the game by any means necessary. The Chiefs' mentality on the sidelines and what it seemed like they prepared was to play, not to lose the game. And it's two entirely different mentalities. When you're playing to win and you're preparing to win, and the sideline is the emotion and everything with that is to win, it's a different mentality than, the atmosphere where you're playing just not to lose.
Right.
It's a
Right.
different, and I think that goes across the board for really anything you're competing for, whether it's for a job, whether it's for a test. Like, how many times, if like I can tell you, I told you earlier, I had a 1.8 GPA. Every test I fit, like if I go into a test and I'm like, well, I'm preparing for this test just not to fail. Well, you're probably going to get a D.
Yeah, that's a great point.
If you prepare for a test, I'm preparing for this test because I want to get an A, you're more than likely going to get an A or A minus or B plus, right? So like, I think that just goes across the board, man. Like, that's anywhere, you know?
Yeah, and it's, I mean, it just goes to show that this is where the culture comes in. And I heard this. Gosh, I was listening to this podcast with DJ Shipley, and one of the things, he heard this from somewhere else, but he was just, one of the things he said was that, culture beats strategy any day of the week. And I thought that kind of hit me, because if you have a strong culture, it's like no matter what strategy this team tries to throw at you or whatever the circumstances is, you guys are going to support one another. You're going to battle back, because you don't,
Yeah, for
again,
sure.
it's that mentality. I don't want to let down. When one person on this team lacks the mental toughness and lacks that collective belief of, I don't want to let him down, and him being the guy on my right, guy on my left. If one person fails, the play's blown up. Like that, and that's how it
Yeah,
works in football.
it's crazy, man, especially in football, dude. Like that's saying like you're only as good as the worst person on the field. Like you're like if your defense is a liability, and this sucks. I hate using this position as an example, but like that's why like I'm not saying positions are more important than each other, but like a corner. If you have a corner that's just like a liability, well, now you know where they're gonna attack on a second and long, on a third and long, you're across the 50 on a 4th and 5 or 4th and 7. Like, why wouldn't they? Your defense is as good as the worst person on the field. And you got a defensive end, you run the forefront, and you got a defensive end that an edge that just is not good. I'm running the ball right off the edge, dude. Stop it. Here you go.
That's exactly right. So one of the other drills, and I don't know if we're going to be able to have time to get through every single one of these, but there's one other one that I want to capture, and that's this one. And it's called we call it the board drill. Okay, so basically, for all those people who ever heard of the game, floor is lava, right? Now this is this is not the greatest photo here, but this is basically capturing what this means. Okay, so the team has to work as a group, and it's not 5 yards or whatever this is, but this is the AI generated version. But the idea is, there's a set of cones with some ammo cans beyond them, probably 30 yards down. The team has to work as a unit, and they can use these boards that we provide. There's 3 boards. They have to work as a team and utilize the boards to make it across the lava field. If one person touches the grass, they got to restart. Okay, so time is of the essence. This is definitely one of those time pressure drills and the leader has to come up with a sound strategy. In my group, one of the things I saw was that the leader decided to bring the entire squad with them on this journey of using the boards and getting all the way across. When I told them, you know what, do you really need all 10 guys to make it across the field? What I would do is maybe 3 guys, 4 guys max, because that way you're not having a whole assembly line of guys bringing these boards across or sliding them down, whatever the strategy is. But once again, kind of same similar to what the to build the bridge obstacle, which was the first couple yards, first 10 yards, no problem. But once time started creeping in and the time started, I guess, ticking away would be the better way to say that. They got close, they got their ammo cans, and they were getting ready to head back. And they spent precious time bickering about what strategy they're going to do. It's almost like they had a strategy, and then when they got to the end, they came up with a new strategy to see if they would cut down on time. There was a lot of internal bickering going on. Hey, I got this idea. What about this? Hey, I got this. No, that's stupid. Let's not do it. And what I loved about the leader in my group, he saw that. He recognized that. And he stepped right in and said, guys, enough. This is what I need you to do. I need you guys to go on the furthest board, take the ammo cans, and let's get moving. And all of a sudden they listen. It's like the leader's got to lead. The leader needs to take charge.
I think
right?
also too, it's just like when you have a strategy, good or bad, and you're already in it, and this is what you briefed, you got to go with it.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like adjust, necessary as you're going, but like changing the entire strategy while doing the event is just going to cause more harm than good.
Yeah. No,
So
absolutely.
you're
Because
already
it's adding more complexity, which means
Yep.
you're going to make more mistakes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just
And
like,
I always tell our leaders, be decisive, come up with a strategy, the best strategy you can, utilizing your resources, utilizing your mentors, all the knowledge that you have. Come up with a strategy, stick to the plan, and come up with a simple plan that can be adapted. Little adjustments here and there, great. And certainly go to your group for input, like we talked about with Cody last week and the chapter 2 of extreme ownership. Like one of the things that he said was, hey, a good leader goes to that group and asks for input. Hey, what do you guys think? Let me hear your idea. Okay, I like that. Let's do that. That's a good leader. Because if you you come in with a plan, sometimes some of these guys may say, you know what, that plan freaking sucks. And I hope we fail because you didn't ask for my input. I got a good idea over here. So anyway, sticking to the plan, and especially when you start seeing this and time's ticking away, that's where you got to take charge. Because otherwise you guys are going to fail. He stepped in at the right time, and I thought that was fantastic. I know time's eating away for us, but I just want to say a few things, and I want to hear your thoughts too. This when we did this with the group. Now, mind you, this is the fourth time we've done this with this team, and you could tell because number one, Coach Firth, with his off season program, the weightlifting program, strength and conditioning, they were physically there. Like
sure, yeah,
the
they were.
physical challenges, mind you, a couple players struggled, which we kind of expected, but for the majority of them, they were fantastic. They accomplished the physical objectives. We only had one guy puke, which I think is a success. um, but they were physically there. Most importantly, their strategy was great. They were mentally there. They had great strategies going into this. I think leadership was great. I think one of our groups probably could have been better with communication, be a little bit more vocal, a little bit too quiet. In my opinion, I think that was Coach Firth's group. But when it was all said and done, some of these players who were terrified going into this, when we finally blew the whistle and the day was done, all 4 stations completed, they cheered, man. They all came together in midfield, rowdy, just pumping each other up, jumping up and down. I mean, that to me was awesome. And it was just great to see, like, hey, we put in the hard work. We share this hardship together. This team is getting stronger. And it was evident by just that little act of just, celebrating together, celebrating that they've accomplished all that. So I just thought that was, honestly, this was the best one. You and I, we talked about it. It's like, this was, this is something we didn't kind of know what we were going to expect going into this, but
Yeah.
just seeing how well they performed and just how much fun they had, because that was one of the things we heard. It was not only an ass kicker, but it was fun and they enjoyed it.
Yeah, dude. I think this year too, like when we did it, it was just like hands down the best group I've seen at like a high school level that like by far.
The One of the things that I just want to share, because we always give awards at the end. We give an award for the top leader, and we give an award for the gung ho award. So it's guy who wasn't leading but showed the most heart, showed the most motivation, he was vocal, communicated really well. And really just a little success story here because this player who earned the Gung Ho Award was a player who was, like you were talking about, not as bought in, not really seeing what the point is of just getting up and doing these 6 a.m. workouts. Didn't really see the whole point of these LRCs. In fact, this may have been his first one. I'm not exactly sure
Yeah,
about that
I
one,
think it was.
but the cool thing I heard from the coaches was that this player was completely bought in that day. He took charge. He was a good team player. I don't think he was necessarily in the leader of that group, but suggesting ideas, motivating his guys, encouraging his guys. And I thought, shoot, who better than to give it to him just to kind of show, hey, you know what? You're going to give us some effort. You're going to buy into this culture. Absolutely. We should reward you. We gave him the award. And then he got up afterwards and said something. So we all got together midfield, gave out the awards, and then this player came up and addressed his group and just said, "Hey guys, I know I haven't exactly been living up to expectations. I know some of you guys look up to me, and I've been failing you. I haven't been committed. I haven't been disciplined, and it all stops now. And for going forward, you're going to get everything I got, in the season and beyond. And I'm sorry for letting y'all down." And I just thought that's like you would never expect that from this guy. And this guy's D1 caliber talent. And but just it was just all of a sudden his character switched, man. And it was, I think, a lot to do with Coach Firth, a lot to do with his leaders, and just kind of seeing the direction this culture is heading. So yeah, I just thought that was incredible. Just being able to be
Yeah.
part of that and being able to deliver something to them that I hope gets their culture heading in the right direction. And I think so. Just to kind of wrap up our conversation today, there's a couple things I just wanted to point out of what should each team aim for in developing a winning culture. I think to kind of start things off, I think a culture is something you can feel it when you're there. Like you see
Yeah,
it.
100%.
Like the story I shared in the beginning. It's the intensity. It's the communication. It's these leaders who are bought in and they're invested in the guys around them. They're when they're done, they're coaching. Like there's always something to do. And a culture that focuses on excellence and accepts nothing less, and just in terms of academics, sports, whatever the case may be. I think it's serving. It is a sacrificial leadership mentality. It is I don't want to let down the players to my right, players to my left. I'm being relied upon, and I need to commit myself to being that every single day for this group because they deserve it. And I think whereas you see it nowadays, a lot of ego, a lot of selfishness, I think those things are toxic for a culture. And it's funny because I'm sure you can attest to this too. In some tight knit military organizations, some special operations organizations, if you're not humble, they won't tolerate it. You'll get peer eval out if you are not team serving instead of self serving.
Like I was only in the 82nd. But I mean, even there to an extent, man, like if you're not like there's some cultural things that I don't agree with that I've seen people do, and I think directly affects the culture. Um, but a lot of my friends that went over to the special operations side, um, they all say that, and every leadership course in the military, you're getting a peer evaluation. So like you're gonna hear it or not, what your peers say about you, whether you like it or not, you're gonna hear it. So like I don't know. I think it's very important to to one culture, like again that I see, like we talk about like selfishness on a team, and I always resort back to like the investment that we were talking about earlier. Like you can feel the energy when you walk into a weight room, when you walk into whatever you're doing, right? And I think that that's not just a thing that is overnight that happens. That's something that is like built in, like it's instilled. It's been years and years and years in the making through expectations and through success, through individuals that come and go. Um, but I think with like what is the most toxic thing that you can do for a culture a winning culture and a really good culture on a team is selfishness acts. Like, I think that is hands down one of the most toxic things that you can do. And I'm here, like it goes back to the portal, man. You're gonna see this. I have this true belief you're gonna see the same 20 teams. It's a 16 team playoff in college sports, I know, but you're gonna see the same 20 familiar teams rotating in and out of the playoff every single year. That's what it's going to be because everyone is just you can't have a winning culture when people are coming and going off of selfishness.
Yep.
I get it, man. I understand going to a school and you're a second string or third string and the guy before you is a first round draft pick. You are not going to play. It's just that freak of nature. He's better than
Yeah.
you. You're not going to play. Go ahead, transfer, go where you can get reps and be seen by NFL scouts.
Yeah, I agree to that, and it's a great point you're making because it's
Right.
like we're not saying that just because you're transferring doesn't mean you
Yeah,
have a bad
right, and
character.
I wanna
Yeah,
say that because people will take it the wrong way, but what I don't agree with is when I see a wideout who wins a national championship with Georgia, the next year he's playing for Alabama.
right,
There's
right.
no and he's starting for Georgia, like, he's a wide receiver 2 or 3, like, he's slot, he's
Yeah,
utilized, he's gonna get seen by scouts, he's playing.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden he wakes up and he's just transferring because he wants to.
right,
And
right.
that's not just in football, right? Like, obviously, like, that's in any sport, but, like, I just don't, necessarily agree with that because you are not there is no it just doesn't seem like a rational decision to do.
Hmm.
It seems very like, "Well, I was here, I loved it here, I got my ring, let's go somewhere else, this should be cool." And then,
Let me get some more money. Yeah,
yeah, he
yeah,
gets more and it always comes down to the money, right? Because,
yeah,
you know again, dude, I hate this could be a whole episode. I hate to fall off the rails with it, but I think an act like that is worse for the culture than anything else.
yeah.
And it boils down to just like how a lot of kids, like the youth view it, man. Even with education, and this is another thing that a lot of people the younger people won't understand is like Georgia does not offer the same 4-year bachelor programs as Alabama. Alabama doesn't offer the same 4-year programs as NC State. Like, you're in school to play ball, yes, but you're also there on a full ride scholarship, like, and you're just transferring school to school, probably changing. So you see these 6-year seniors that don't have bachelor's degrees
Right.
because they've just transferred.
And you could have masters at that point.
You
Yeah,
do. You could
yeah,
be in a PhD program, and it's like,
absolutely.
and that is more frustrating from a leadership perspective because whether we believe it or not, it happened to me in the military. At some point, this is going to end.
Hmm.
You are not going to play football for the rest of your life. It is just not the reality. I thought I was going to be in the Army for 20 years. And I turned 25 and all of a sudden I started hurting 26 and I just started getting injured. And I just my
Hmm.
body was like, dude, I'm getting out, man. My body can't take it anymore.
There's your
But
time.
this shit is not going to end. And then you're going to turn around if you go undrafted or you get drafted, you play for a year or two. And it's like, dude, you don't have a bachelor's still. You're going to
Yeah.
go back to school, and that to me is just is worse for the youth than anything because it's not teaching. You're not thinking strategically for long-term success when this is all over, when NIL's done, when you're not an athlete anymore, when you have to implement yourself within working America. And it's like, okay, that's great. It's awesome. You scored touchdowns, but what do you have to offer to my company? How can you make this company effective?
And here's the thing, you don't and just to kind of put a button on this, because this is something I continuously revisit with the teams that I work with. It's okay. If a coach were to come to me and let's just say it's some SEC school coach, and for some reason they reach out to us, and he's just like, hey, with the transfer portal and everything, I want to build the best culture I possibly can. What do you guys recommend? How do I do this in terms of selecting the right guys that fit my culture? Here's the thing, it's hard, man, and I get why some companies do a culture assessment, and I think that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
dude. Yeah.
Because if you get peer evaluations, like you were saying, and it seems like some special operation communities are like peer evaluations. Rank the guys that you think would be the best fit for this team. Score them, out of 1 to 10. Bottom five guys, they're gone. Like, see ya. Like, because we want to choose and pick players that are the best fit for our culture.
I would I would completely agree, man. And I want to say this. I have no idea if those degree programs are identical or not. Like bachelor, I just want to say that they could be. I don't know, but I just want to throw that out there. Um, but yeah, like I would completely agree with that. And that's right now, I think that's the biggest issue you're seeing in the coaching in college sports, college athletics is like, I mean, high school athletics now, because it's worked its way down, is how do you effectively build a culture in a time where investment isn't there? That this right here, the era we're in of college athletics and high school athletics is the most challenging era ever. Because I think that there's a lot of, I'm sorry, okay, I think that there's a lot of fantastic culture. There's a lot of fantastic coaches out there that have a history of building some great cultures at schools. And I think that right now they're hurting because of they can't trust they can't trust the player.
And I think that, again, it's hard to really, because the natural leadership response is, if you don't have a great culture, it's a leadership problem. And the leaders, coaches need to look in the mirror. What am I doing wrong? But I think a lot of this is actually out of their control. And there are
Uh,
some things that are in their control for sure.
for sure,
And
for
those
sure.
are the things that they need to focus on. And that's where they can bring in a consultant, or, whatever the case may be, to help them kind of work through that. But there's just a lot of things that are out of their control. And I think it goes down to the players, and it starts very early on in the high school levels. And there's so much more. I know this is such a
I,
big topic, and
do you,
we're not gonna be
yeah,
able to cover everything, but just as a high level,
yeah. And
that's a good looking goal.
my question is too, like, this might sound crazy, but like you might want to start adjusting the way you're recruiting.
Yeah.
At the way you're recruiting. I have no idea the process. And like, I'm talking, people might hear this and be like, well, you don't know how it is. You don't know the process. That's fair, dude. You're right. I don't. I've never been a college coach. I
Mm.
coached high school football for 1 year. I'm very much a consumer, but maybe adjusting, like truly adjusting it, right? Like truly looking at an athlete, pulling his grades and talking to his teachers, pulling them all in a room, or no, not all, one by one.
Yeah.
I need your honest opinion. Does this person deserve a full ride scholarship to the University of Notre Dame? Yes or no? Will
Yeah.
he succeed here?
Yeah.
And do not lie.
Is
And
this
like,
a tough loss for you? Like,
is it a,
are
yeah,
you begging him to stay, or are
are
you,
you
like, happy
right?
he's gone?
Am I going to have to baby him? Like have these
Yeah.
like 15 questions, have him fill it out and then you just jot it down. And I think that right there, like that'll eliminate, that'll weed it all out. And you know what, dude? And that's for the programs that want to build a great culture, want to be super. I would go about it that way.
And I think a lot of coaches are, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a decision. They
Yeah.
Whether you're recruiting or looking at the transfer portal, there's still a selection being made. There's still a decision to take them. And I just think they just need to think very critically about who they're taking on. And honestly, I think there's some coaches that are happy they're going in the transfer portal, because maybe that is better for the culture. And I like to, I sometimes I feel bad because I'm always kind of feeling like these coaches don't have it figured out. They do. They're smart enough.
There,
And if
yeah.
you listen to them, a lot of them know culture, they know leadership, and they get that kind of thing. But I'm just talking like, these are just some things for these are some things to look out for, because at the end of the day, I think culture beats strategy every day. If you want to compete with the big boys, you want to compete, like, these are some of the things you have to do. You don't have a choice, because you may not have the talent that matches up with some of these high functioning teams. So what do? Hey, reinforce culture. and give these players the best experience of their life. Teach them some life skills. Teach them leadership skills, and just get the best out of developing them that you possibly can. And then be very picky about who comes in, because honestly, that is going to better your program so much. And so,
Yeah,
just to
yeah,
kind of end it there, I
yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
that choose for culture,
Yeah.
and develop your culture. And I think that you're going to have a better team.